Yeah, so this overview will try to explain where FHIR Web comes in and the different roles it would play in the FHIR core architecture. So we have the app here that we presented earlier, and then we have the happy FHIR server that we're using as our default FHIR storage right now, but this could be replaced by any FHIR compatible server. And then we have FHIR Web, FHIR Analytics. So this is the analytics side of FHIR Core, and then we have FHIR integration, FHIR Core integration. So that's how we integrate to different medical systems that are already there. So FHIR Web will be helping us with a couple of things in administering FHIR Core. So the main function of it is management around users, around different teams in the facilities or in the communities, and around location management. Also around the communities that the app will be deployed in. And then we have another bit which is around patient data display and data collection. So here we'll be able to display the data that we've collected from the app on the web for different visualization purposes, and also enable a data collection for these patients against the same questionnaires that are used in the app that we have. So for today, I'll just walk you through those functionalities, show you a demo of how we're going to use it, and the use case that we use it in, and then talk about the future of FHIR Web and how we aim to pivot it to be the go-to open source web app for management of FHIR applications and FHIR servers out there. Yeah. So we have a couple of features that we've already built in. So the first feature is around user, essentially practitioner management. So this is around authentication and authorization. And here we had to integrate with authorization and authentication server named Keycloak, which is also open source. We have location management. So this is creation of different kind of locations, the FHIR instance, visualizing those locations in a hierarchy. So you can easily drill down the hierarchy and find the locations that you're looking at. And then we have team assignments. So this is assigning different practitioners to different teams based on where you want them to work. Care team management, again, this is creation of care teams and assigning the groups that the care teams work with and the different practitioners that are in that care team. And then we have the patient view pieces, which I talked about. So this will help us display most of the resources of most of the data that we've collected from the app, and in future that we've collected from the web app too. And then support of updating patients via the SDC library. Yeah, so to achieve this, we're using a tool from the Norwegian government. So that tool helps us author questionnaires and also visualize them on the web. I'll be talking about and also showing a small demo of the tool as we go on. Yeah. So I'll stop sharing right now and go through the demo, and then we can come back and talk about what we're looking to achieve in the future. Yeah, your questions will be welcomed after that. Thank you. Okay, I hope that's visible.
Ben, can you just explain a little bit that this works with ideally any FHIR API and what a FHIR API is in terms of like a server?
Yes. Yeah, so I think I'll start there. So this is the screen that you see once you log out. So this is the authentication server, the Keycloak authentication server that manages the authentication and authorization of all the users that access the web or the Android app. So we'll just log in. Yeah, and once you log in, this is the screen you're met with. So here, all the data that we collect from this platform interacts with the FHIR APIs. So the different resources in FHIR have corresponding APIs to make sure that you can perform the different create, read, or update functionalities on them. So what we do here is once we collect the data, we convert it to the correct format accepted by the different resources that we are targeting to store. And then through the happy APIs, we hit that and save that data. So we've had to add some extra functionality for some of the things that we'll be demoing here, and I'll make sure to highlight them when we get to them. Yeah. We also hit the Keycloak APIs to create the user data and then match them to the corresponding practitioners in the FHIR resources. Yeah, so I'll go through the management pieces of the app first, of the web app first. So that's user management, location management, care teams management, team management, group management, and health services management. Then we'll talk about the patient bit, and then we'll go into the questionnaires. Yeah, and then we flow into the what the future has for this tool. Yeah, so here we have three categories. So the first category is a list of users with a couple of actions enabled. So that's creation, editing, credentials adding, and then we have the user groups and the roles. So the roles are essentially permissions that you assign a user to access a specific endpoint in an API. So an example, if I wanted to save a practitioner in the FHIR API, then probably I would assign this user create practitioner endpoint role or permission. So this page is read-only, mainly because users are not allowed to edit this page. The editing of this is still left on the Keycloak UI, because this is only this can only be edited by users with a bit of technical knowledge, mainly because the permissions or roles are case sensitive. So a change in something small on the naming means that all the users assigned that role cannot access the intended API. And so because we can have a list of roles, instead of assigning a single role to everyone, then we're using the concept of groups or user groups to group your users and give them multiple permissions at once. Yeah. So we'll start by creating a user group here. So we can just and what what it does, then it gives you a list of roles that you can assign this user group. Then you can select any and just move them and save that. So once you've done that, then all the users you assign that user group will essentially be a super user for the web app now that you've assigned them all the roles. Yeah, so then you can create a user here. So the email is...
When we're saying user, we're meaning a provider in FHIR speak.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so the email is not required. You can choose to enable or disable this practitioner, and you can choose whatever role you'd want to give them. So you can select multiple groups, but for now, we'll just assign them that. So once that's created, then it gives you the option to create a password for them. Obviously has the checks that are required for password creation. Let's see. Then, yeah. So once you have that, you have your user here. So now using the username and password, you're able to log into the web app and Android app. But from the OpenSRP use case, you still cannot perform some actions on the app because you need to understand what location are you collecting the data for, what team are you in, so we can show you the correct set of patients and the correct set of forms that you'll be collecting data for. So the next piece is we create a team for you. So we still have some development to do. We're fetching a bit of data here, so this takes a bit of time. Please bear with me. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So in the same name, you can have an alias if you want. I can set it to active. So we have two sets of teams that you can have. So that's a healthcare provider team or just an organizational team. So a healthcare provider team means these ones are involved in giving care. An organizational team can be a team of users who don't give care to the patients, but access the data probably for reporting or things like that. So then you can choose a practitioner or the practitioners to assign to this team. So you can search and find the practitioner that we created. You can assign multiple practitioners. You can see that. So from this list, you can be able to search if you wanted to, and this also gives you a view of any extra details that are there. Yeah. So now you have a team and the practitioner assigned. You'd also want to assign the practitioner to a care team. So in FHIR, patients, you track a patient care through care plans. And care plans are assigned to care teams. So these teams are essentially people who give the care that the care plan is created for. So we might have multiple care plans, e.g. NC and PNC, child health, and all that. So you need to create that too. Yeah, so one of the reasons this is taking a bit of time is trying to fetch all the practitioners that we have from the server. So those are some of the improvements we'll be working on. Yeah, so we have the care team created, then find the practitioner. Remember to mark them as active, so you can add them to any group. So the idea of grouping patients according to their care teams makes it easier to manage them and assign people to actually provide the care for them. So, so right now I'll just select a random group there. About why that randomly. Yes, now we have a care team and a team. So we can go to the location pieces. So here we're fetching the different locations in the FHIR server using the location API, and then through an additional extension that we've built on top of the FHIR API, we generate a hierarchy. So this hierarchy is essentially a drill down of the location, starting from the root location. So in this case, that's the country, down to the least location you can have. Most cases, that's a village. So this is the visualization here I'm talking about around location hierarchy display. So you can create root locations or assign locations to or create children or child locations to any locations. So what happens is once you select anything on the left here, the table on the right dynamically displays the location you've selected and any children if they are available. So that's an example there. So I would say, yeah, so probably we can add a location.
Maybe a quicker So this is very similar to like the location management in DHIS too. So we purposely try to replicate kind of how that works, and it provides the same kind of functionality. So this is where you would be managing your village, your health facilities, villages, etc. for deployment of a health application would be managed here.
Yes, so create location, obviously give it an alias. So FHIR allows you to have different types of locations. So right now for the PNSRP use case, we're supporting a structure or a jurisdiction, but we can definitely update this to support more physical types. Yeah, so for the location to show up here, you have to show it, you'd have to select the jurisdiction. So for the building or the structures, we have a different tool and also an extension on the app that will be able to display the structures on a map view. Yeah, so we save that. Yeah, because this has to refresh, takes a bit of time. But as it's doing that, we can move to the team assignment. Okay. Okay, let's just refresh it manually. You can see. Awesome. Yes, so this loads the same view, but gives you more functionality around the assignment. So if we come to Charlietown, then you can see the location we just added. So we can click Charlietown here. First, give it a minute to complete loading the team assignments. Awesome. So this table here shows you the name of the location and the name of the teams that have already been assigned. So then you can click edit, and then you can select from a list the teams that you'd want to assign to that location. So these are the teams we created earlier. So we save that. That will take some bit of time to refresh. Awesome. Yeah. So with the actions that we've performed, now a practitioner is ready to log into the app and collect data based on the location and the team or care team they are assigned to. Yeah, so we have the group and the health services management piece. So here, the idea behind this is we'd like to create groups to group the different patients based on their care teams, and then use those groups on the app. Yeah, to group the patients and make sure that the correct care teams work on the correct set of patients. Yeah, so you'll notice most of the functionality here is disabled, mainly because we are still working on it. And so different care teams provide different healthcare services. So that's also the aim for this healthcare services model. Awesome. Yeah, so that's the bit around administration. I'll still come back to the questionnaires. So we also have a view to display the different patients, the data of the different patients we've collected from the app. Yeah, so here we have a table with summaries, and then so search for a patient. We use a bit when doing a bit of demos because of the data they have. So you notice after you click on a patient, you're redirected to this page that shows all the data that has been collected against them. So this left panel is dynamic, which means it grows depending on the number of resources collected against that patient. The counts here are the number of that specific resource against that patient. Yeah, so this is something we're still building up, but I'll just take you through the different pieces that we've already completed. So once you click on the on one row in this column here, then the table here is populated dynamically based on whatever data needs to be shown. So the patient, we can check the organization. So this is probably the organization the patient is tied to. You can see the location that this patient is tied to. You can see the practitioner that is assigned to this patient. The care teams, you can see the encounters that this patient has had with the practitioner. So we've had 2 encounters around COVID vaccination, and then I can also track the immunization. Yeah, so have some data that's missing there, and then can also track like the dates of the immunization record and the next dosage dates. So for document reference, so this patient, we created them from an app that is tracking COVID certificates and helps generate like certificates after vaccination. So the document reference is a resource that helps you hold that kind of data. So what would happen is once you click on it, then you'll see the different documents that are tagged to this patient, and you can download them if need be. Yeah. Awesome. So I'll go back and look for another patient just to show the how dynamic that view is. So these are two patients that we created in our FHIR core demo earlier. So I'll start with Victor, who's a child. So you see this left panel changes again based on the different data that we've collected. And then all the patients related to Victor are listed here. So you can see the different patients that are related to Victor. So we have a number of tasks that should be performed for this patient. We have the care plan, the group, the practitioner, related persons.
Maybe show maybe just show the care plan on the.
Yes, so the care plan here is a child routine visit care plan. So this, in the context of the app we're building in Liberia, a child needs to be visited every 1 month by the CHW, once at least every month until they're 5 years. So this care plan helps track that. So you can see the period here marks the day they were on to the day that this care plan needs to be closed. And the tasks here, we haven't built the view for that yet, will be tied to this care plan. So every time the tasks are performed on the app, then the task status will be changing for that. Yeah. Okay, so I think, okay. So this is for the mother. So this will just show the different care plan that the mother is in, but you can see the related patients are here. And the mother, I think this should be an NC care plan, but you can check the encounter. Yes. Then you can check the different observations that are tied to the mother, and any other items to be tied to them. So this is the organization that the practitioner who takes care or provided the care is assigned to. Awesome. So from this, this data is collected on the app via questionnaires, which are submitted and extracted to different resources. So we submit questionnaire responses and then extract them to different resources. So we want to move that functionality to the web. So we started by just listing out the different questionnaires we have. So we have a couple right now in our server, but I'll just take you through one that's in use, at least in our Liberia project. Yeah, so we'll go through the sick child registration form. So this is a form to register a child who's sick. So you'll notice the UI here is a bit different from the UI you were showing. So this is because we are utilizing a tool built by the Norwegian government to author the questionnaires and also visualize them on the web. So I'll just go through how they're visualized and just briefly show you the authoring tool. Yeah, so this is the same questionnaire that a practitioner would fill when they're using the app out in the field. Yeah, so this should be a calculation of the age for the patient, then different skip logic is implemented based on the on how you authored the questionnaire. Yeah, so if the child is not well, then there are a couple of questions you need to answer, and the skip logic is applied as you answer the questions. So you can support different kinds of inputs.
So again, this is using, if you remember the last presentation, this is using what we call FHIR questionnaire, which is the standardized way in FHIR to generate forms. So the beautiful thing is what Ben is showing you now will work exactly the same in theory as what we have in the Android app too. So it's the same form or same questionnaire then rendered via a web client or through an Android client, like through a data collection form. So you can author your logic one time and collect it two different ways now. So we're working towards.
Yeah, so right now we haven't implemented the extraction bit. So extraction is the process of getting FHIR resources from the questionnaire response, which is the resource generated after filling up a questionnaire. So if we submit this, this will just send the questionnaire as is to the server. But I think I had created one here earlier. Not wrong. Okay, let's close that. Just to demo like what kind of resource it would be. So an example of how's this child doing, then you'd have the answer added there. So and you have to author a structure map or SQL to extract this to different resources if need be. Yeah. So the other thing that we've done here is just the ability to display the different questionnaires that have the questionnaire responses that have already been filled up. So you can view the different questionnaire responses there. So they're listed out, the different versions. And when you click on edit, it should load up the data that was filled while that questionnaire was being filled up. So the same functionality here is the same functionality that the mobile app provides through the Android SDK.
Yeah, I think the main thing here with FHIR, the key point to understand is questionnaires can use to be, you could use it to collect any information. You could do a household survey with it. So that, and then it stores the data in questionnaire responses. But when you're building applications in FHIR, the idea really is to extract that data into the appropriate resources. So if you want to check the blood pressure of a woman over time, you don't have to go back and read through the questionnaire responses. You would look up the woman, you would search your observation table, then filter out the observations for blood pressure or weight, for example. So it's really meant to be the data structured in like a health kind of database approach. And you're not using your forms or questionnaire responses as the primary source of your data. It's really just a means of capturing, it creates a record of the data capture, but then you're really meant to extract it to the appropriate resources. And then the nice thing is that if you're building an application, you can check the logic of the observations for blood pressure or weight or whatever those things are in your clinical analysis, or you can look up the medications that the patient would have if it's a lab system, for example, or a diagnostic report for a lab test, things like that. So just a key kind of point to emphasize here. So, but with the form thing, so our goal here is to eventually be able to support the data extraction. So that would allow us to do both kind of data entry and basically have an EMR type interface through web that could be used through a computer or through iPhone, etc. So we think it has a lot of power if we could offer both in the future. So
yeah, awesome. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so I'll briefly talk about the tool that has to achieve all this. So I'll share the links later, but here is an example of the same form that you're displaying here and how it's authored. So you have the different form components you can have. And the fun part about this is it's essentially a drag and drop tool. So you can add any kind of questions you want here, and then so let's test. And then you could preview before you like save it. So you can see the question we just added because we didn't define any options, say undefined, but then you can obviously just define them and then preview that. So this helps you while authoring the questionnaire to even have an idea of how it would display on either the let's see. Okay, yeah, on how it would display on either the mobile app or yeah, the web app. Sure why that's not loading, but then you can save this as JSON, and then you can post it to the server again, either through the questionnaires module that we have here once we enable the creation, or through the FHIR APIs via any other tool that interacts with the FHIR APIs, and it would be ready for users to use them either on the web app or on the Android app. Yeah, so I think that's it around the demo. So I think I'll proceed to like what we want to achieve in future. We've touched about some of the things, and I think that would be it. Yeah, so I think the first thing, as you might have noticed, is obviously performance improvements to iron out the different places where the web app is a bit slowed down for the management pieces. And then we want to start supporting clinical workflows. So this is through the data collection and extraction pieces that we've started. So the idea here is to be able to support any kind of workflow by making sure that all the forms that are needed to be filled can be filled from the web app. Any care plan or tasks generation from that data that has been collected can be done using the extraction, which we talked about a bit. Yeah, and you can follow the patient through their episode of care. And then the other piece that will still be supporting our FHIR core app and the web app itself is around configuration. So in our last demo, we talked about how we are building an app that generates different views based on the data that it finds on the FHIR server. So we have some configurations to help the app with that. So the vision there is to have one APK that can be used, or one app that can be used to track multiple interventions without having to rebuild it. So we just give it configuration files as FHIR resources, and then it will track that for you. So one of the aims of the web app is to make the authoring generation of those configs as easy as possible, and also integrate that kind of configuration to the web app. So the same configurations can be used to configure how the web app functions, yeah, and how the the app works. And then the other piece we'd like to add is role-based access control. So again, this is something that would affect both the web app and the FHIR core application. So here, this is just making sure that users only have access to the data that they need to access. So this is based on, again, the teams, care teams, locations, or organizations that are assigned to, and also the different user roles they are assigned to from the organization server that you have. So this will affect the web app and the FHIR core application. Matt, do you have anything else to add on this?
No, I think we should open it for questions.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's it from me. Thank you for listening. And yeah, your questions are welcome.
Yes, thank you, Sir Matt and Sir Benjamin. So I think there are new questions in the chat box. There's one from Dr. Puyat. So can a feedback option also be added to questionnaires?
So is this feedback from the patients or from the practitioners to the patients? Do you mind expounding on that?
So this
Yes.
feedback
Yeah.
that I've been inquiring about is specifically so that healthcare providers who are using the questionnaires can provide specific qualitative data on any updates or revisions in the questionnaire, because there might be any items that aren't updated, or even to just submit general feedback to optimize user friendliness. So is it be possible, or is it already implemented in the existing questionnaires?
Okay, so that's for essentially the practitioners to provide us with feedback on what or the administrators of the app on what they think would work well to improve on usability of the app or the web app, right? Am I getting that right?
Yes.
I see. I mean, you could, the beautiful thing with questionnaires is you could create a questionnaire specifically for that. And you could extract that data to whatever resource you want, or you could read it as is. So I think other than adding like the feedback pieces on the service delivery questionnaires, I think you could have a questionnaire designed specifically for that, and you could have it capture any kind of questions you'd want. Yeah, so I would say that's something you can incorporate, but probably on a different questionnaire, not the service delivery questionnaires.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to ask about how to connect the resources that you have to a, for example, a Smile server. Is it just a matter of plugging in the configuration for the server URL, Matt?
I believe so, Ben. I think it's Smile has the same API as Happy.
As Happy, yes.
Yeah. The only thing, Alvin might be a little bit on the authentication, since I believe Smile provides authentication. We're using KeyCloak, which is external. So you might have to look at the authentication piece.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
that works. But
yes.
Yeah. The idea with this again is you point this at any API, like FHIR has a common API across the different servers, and this uses that API. The only thing that's unique is the authentication, and we're using KeyCloak for that.
Right.
So there might be a little bit of work there, but everything else should be the same in terms of a patient's a patient. You know, like it knows the APIs are the same across these tools.
Right. So we install the FHIR core code, and then we configure the Smile server URL, and then we work on the authentication is the challenging one. So do we need
Yeah,
to like have a discussion about how that's done between FHIR core and a Smile server? Over.
probably, yeah, we probably just have to
Yeah.
look at it with you. I don't know if we've used Smile CDR yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there are also a couple other differences in terms of how locations are managed. So Happy doesn't have the idea of a location hierarchy in it, although you can extend it to include that. And so we have an extension for Happy that we use to add the idea of location hierarchy. So I'm not sure what Smile CDR's extension framework is like. I'd assume it's the same, if not very similar to Happy's. So we might have to work also on making sure the extensions that we have on Happy can be compatible, or if any changes need to be made with Smile CDR. Also on the authentication, I'll note that Google is working on a FHIR authentication proxy. And the idea with that is it would abstract the idea of authentication from Keycloak or Smile CDR to this alternative proxy, which would manage authentication. And then that would communicate with Smile CDR or with Keycloak or with another cloud-based user management system, so that you would have one single interface for your authentication needs.
Thank you. Is that already available? What would be the name of that? It's like an interoperability framework for authentication.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the chat. It's under development now and testing.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's named FHIR access proxy.
So we'd like to do that. Our lab, the University of the Philippines Manila Laboratory, we've spun off a development version of Smile CDR for our lab, and we'd like to see how the FHIR core can be used as an interface. So Matt, maybe you can send some documentation, and I can
Sure.
have the lab members work on it.
Yeah, I think maybe just setting up a call with our two teams would be a good way to start. They can probably understand
Okay.
quickly what the issues
All
are.
right.
Yep.
Thank you. Cha.
I think there are no new questions yet from our participants.
Yep. Yeah, I think just the final point to emphasize again is I think this provides a really powerful example around the ecosystem approach that FHIR is going to promote. So now, you can develop, a web backend that will be compatible against different digital platforms that use FHIR. You can do the same thing for analytics. You can do the same thing. Like we could use the questionnaire builder that the Norwegians built. So it allows specialization, and it doesn't mean that you have to build a backend like this for every single different, DHIS2, OpenSRP, ComCare, Medic all have their own specific backends to their data model. We can now break away from that and focus as a community to making, to work together on building out better backends that could work across platforms. So I think that's just a really powerful idea in general.
Thank you, Matt. Ben, thank you very much for your time and for showing us the technologies and solutions you've created. We hope to continue and pursue in our lab how to use FHIR core, connecting to our Smile CDR. We'd like to do some experiments as well, and also help out with the documentation. Thank you, everyone, and good night. Thank you, Cha. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.